biggest news out there, I think, right now is Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. Mike Tyson, man, Mike
He's
Tyson,
back.
he's back. But Roy Jones, he's one of those guys, man, that hadn't, gotten too far away from the game to where, we could just look past him and think Mike Tyson is going to go in there and just run over Roy Jones. We don't know where Mike Tyson is as far as his fighting skills go at the age of 54. Okay. I'm 55 and man, I woke up yesterday and I told Charmel, God, I feel great. Man, I feel like, let's go for a walk, around the block, get back, man, I felt so good. And then around noon, every bone in my body was aching. And it happens that quick. You don't know when it's gonna happen. The Mike Tyson, of course, he's an athlete. That right there is something that never gonna leave away. That want to go in the ring and fight another man. He suppressed that for a long time. We thought Mike had literally got that out of his system. Am I right or wrong?
Oh yeah, 100% right.
Mike, in interviews, he said he didn't even want to think about that guy because I'm in a different place now. But it just goes to show you the want and sometimes the need to get in there and fight with a man to know where you are is something I think it never goes away in certain people. I'm one of those people. I really am. I know I am. Throughout this pandemic, and people not wearing masks, I've been wishing somebody say something to me. You know what I mean? The wrong way, just so I can test myself.
You're confrontational, like Rob Van Dam says. But what you say about Mike, I never thought. So back in February, you and I, Tyson, we had a little, get together for a couple minutes, what have you, at the Deontay Wilder Tyson Fury fight, right? And I saw Mike then. That was the first time I'd ever met him, and I was like, man, Mike looks pretty good right now. He didn't look like Mike from the 80s or the early 90s, but he looked pretty good. Yeah. And I remember shaking his hand and going, God, man, he hits people with these things. That must suck to be his opponent, right? And I never thought that he'd be back in the ring. But you start seeing those videos, and you said, Tyson looks like he's got some power in him. As long as he matches up with somebody who would be a good match for him. I think Roy Jones Jr. isn't someone, like you said, we can look over because he stayed active. He's more active than Tyson. I think Tyson last fought in 2005, 2006, somewhere in there. So 14, 15 years ago. That's a very long time. And he's a lot older than he was even at that age, which he was considered to be old at that time.
But he's only 3 years older than Roy Jones. So,
right. So
it ain't like these two guys couldn't play in the sandbox together.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Right. They're in the same range. I think it's going to be great. I'll be honest with you. I've bought in. I loved Mike Tyson. I've always loved Mike Tyson. I want to see him go out there and knock Roy Jones Jr. out in 40 seconds. I don't think it's going to happen maybe like that. I know they both said, we're not going to go out and knock each other out. This is an exhibition. We're just going to have a good little fight. But it's Mike Tyson. He's going to knock somebody out. I would be so disappointed to buy the pay-per-view and Mike and Roy just play it nice for 8 rounds. You know what I mean? That's not going to happen. Mike's going to go for the jugular. I know that he is. If you saw that clip that was circulating around a couple months ago of him on his podcast where he's talking about the vicious beast that lives inside him and he's a killer, and when he gets in there, that's going to come out. And Mike Tyson, and I think that he's got some power behind those shoulders, man. He's got the power in the hands.
Look, we're
going to see it, man.
This is no different than Antonio Tarver versus Rocky Balboa. Okay, Mason the Lion Dixon. That's what the name was, and it was supposed to be an exhibition fight. Past versus the future. Okay. Now, I don't know if you remember the line in that movie that Antonio Tarver, Mason the Lion Dixon said. He said, man, if you get in there and you do anything, you try to embarrass me, I'm going to hurt you. That's what we are, man. Right here. These guys that go into this thinking one way and one punch, they have one of them, Vietnam flashbacks. You know what I mean?
Right.
just start throwing punches. So I don't know, man. If I was to give the edge in this fight, even though Mike Tyson been out of the ring, well past Roy Jones, I think, being a true heavyweight, being a guy that, hit as hard as Mike Tyson did in his prime, I still think at 54 years old, I still think Mike Tyson still got more power and more speed than someone like Roy Jones. Roy Jones is one of those fighters that when he went over the top as far as his fighting skills and he started going down, Roy Jones went down very, very quickly, as well as Roy Jones became a fighter that, couldn't get hit anywhere near the chin. So I'm thinking in this fight right here, Mike Tyson is going to come out hard and fast. And he's going to be throwing punches from all angles, and one of them might connect just because it's Mike Tyson throwing them. So I see Mike Tyson. I'm hoping that he don't go out there and hurt Roy Jones Jr. more than anything.
Yeah, you mentioned the Mason the Line Dixon thing with Rocky Balboa. I remember when you were on the Steve Austin show and he talked about how you gave him a pretty stiff shot, and then he said, "All right, that's how you want to do it," and then he gave you a pretty stiff shot back, right?
Yeah.
Even though this is supposed to be, hey, we're working together, brother. We're trying to make each other look good. Sometimes that competitive juice is just going to fly. I think that's exactly what's going to happen in this fight. Mike's going to go out there with the greatest of intentions, and then we've seen Mike turn on a dime. Once you say something or do something that he doesn't like, Roy Jones Jr. hits him with a nice little jab. Mike goes, "Oh, yeah, I felt that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cute. Let me show you what I can do." And it's going to be a real life version of Mike Tyson's Punch Out, the video game. So I think that even though Roy's been active, you talk about a true heavyweight. Roy Jones was a super middleweight, and moved up to heavyweight, I believe.
I think, but that fight with Ruiz. John Ruiz, I don't know if I don't know if Roy Jones had any other heavyweight fights. I think he moved up to fight heavyweight that one time, and he actually won the heavyweight championship. But I don't think that Roy Jones were ever anywhere near being a heavyweight other than that one fight.
Let me ask you this though: Mike goes out there, boom, beats Roy Jones Jr. in this exhibition, knocks him out. Third round. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Automatically get the bug.
He's going to feel it. He's going to think that he's the baddest man on the planet. And I'm not one to tell him that he's not. But how far do you see this going? Could we see Mike Tyson fight guys his age? Could we see him go try to fight a couple? Could we see, you talk about Ruiz, could we see Tyson versus Andy Ruiz? Could we see something like that happen where he fights a real contender down the road?
I really think it's gonna all count on what happens in this Roy Jones fight, because I really believe if Mike Tyson go out and knock the hell out of Roy Jones, he's gonna get the bug again. He's gonna think, man, I still got it. And right now, people think that era can probably beat 80% of the guys today. I'm serious. You know what I mean? I mean, whether they can or not, that's another story. But the fighters of today, they don't look at them nowhere near the way they looked at guys like Mike Tyson. Now, Mike Tyson stepping in and fighting a John Ruiz on paper, people say, man, that's a good look for Mike right there. And the thing is, Mike Tyson perhaps could go out there and knock John Ruiz out. I don't know. But the odds are slim. Just because I think about George Foreman. George Foreman came back after retiring at like 30, came back at 40, and then ran to like 50. Mike Tyson retired at 40, went through his that full stint, and then come back in his 50s to try to how far can he run at 54 years old? How hard can he train at 50 years old? How long can he sustain in a ring? 3-minute rounds, 8 rounds, 10 rounds, 5. How far can he go before he, start feeling, the weight of not being a fighter for so many years? So I don't know, man. Mike, he get the bug. I'm sure he's going to fight again. If he win that fight, I'm sure he's going to fight again. And the thing is, I'm hoping Mike Tyson make me a believer, and we could go on another run again and feel that excitement just one more time. Mike Tyson guy, stick around because I'm getting excited right now. We'll be back in a minute.